All right, so ladies and gentlemen, right now we have our chair that we should have created as we go through here. First things first that we're going to do is I am going to, where is it here? There you go. I'm going to pull up my micro chair so I can follow along on it. All right. So first thing that I want to do as I go through this is I want to make sure that I have all my bodies, because if you actually join something, that's going to be a problem. So I'm going to look up under my body section here, and I'm just going to say that I should have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 bodies that I'm working with there. If you don't have 4 bodies, then you probably joined something as you went through here. And now I'm going to make a new body. And this body is going to represent the plywood that I would use to cut into. So to do that, I'm going to go into Sketch. I am going to choose this base piece here. And I am going to use my 2-point rectangle tool to make a rectangle that is 7 by 7 inches. Why? Because that's just a random number that I know this will fit into easily. And now I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to extrude it out by ply, PLY. And if you recall, PLY is 0.13 inches, the way that we set this up earlier, which is the thickness of the plywood. And I hit enter, and I now have this sheet of plywood basically sitting here. All right, next thing I need to do is I need to make all of my bodies into something called components. I'm not going to get too deep into what components actually are. All I'm going to say is that components basically take a body and it gives it a geometrical location in the program. So you can start having them interact with each other. And instead of sharing a single origin, each one of them has their own origin to interact with each other. To do this, I go up to my bodies, I click on my first body, I go all the way down to the bottom body, press Shift, and click. And when I do that, that selects everything in between. And you'll notice that I selected everything here. I will go over and right click on these bodies, and I will choose Create Components from Bodies. And when I do this, it looks like all my bodies have disappeared. They haven't. All they have is I now see I have new components. These new components in here have the bodies inside of them. But they also have their own origin now. So these are all still working. And you can also rename these. In fact, I'm going to take this and I'm going to rename this component into stock, so that I know exactly what I'm clicking on when I'm looking through it. All right, next thing I'm going to do is a new command that we're going to learn called join. And join is under Assemble and right here. And I can press J as a shortcut key, or I can just choose this. And when I do that, Assemble, Joint, I want you to follow and watch what I'm doing very closely. I'm going to choose these two of these bodies to have an interaction with each other. So I'm going to zoom in on the seat, and I'm going to choose the dead center of the seat. Do not choose an edge or anything like that. You want that little circle with a half circle out of it to be dead center in the body that you're working with. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to go over and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Dead center on this stock. And when I click, there's a little animation that moves it. And I now have that seat sitting directly on top of the stock. I want to go over and flip it. So now it is flipped inside of the stock itself. And now I'm going to be careful because I do not want to lift it out, but I'm going to move this into an easier location a little bit out of the way from the center. Once I find the location, I'm going to click OK. And there it is. Now, if you cannot see, after you click OK, you cannot see your object here, it might be because of your view. You might have the visual style to just shaded, which means that you can't see this unless you lightly hold over it. I encourage you to check and make sure that you have a visual style of shading with hidden edges. It's easier to see. Now that I've got this, I'm going to go through and I'm going to choose every single piece to join. So I'm going to zoom in and make sure I get the dead center of the back. I'm going to choose right here, click on it, and it moves in. I flip it over, and now I move it up. Click OK. Once again, these chairs are a little bit hard. You want the flat side that's going to meet up so you're getting the right dimension. I'm going to zoom in really closely so I get the center here. Don't get an edge. There I go. All right, there I go. And once again, I could adjust these, and if I was really doing this as construction, I would make sure that these, because I'd want to save as much material as I could, I would make sure these fit very close. Oh, forgot to flip it. I'd make sure that these fit as perfectly as I could get them. I'll be honest, I really don't care right now. I'm not really going to be worrying about these with materials, but if we're actually doing this in the, at school, we would want to make sure that we had these packed in as tightly as we could so that we were not wasting any material. We could probably get 5 or 6 students out of this one sheet of plywood that we have here. All right, back to assemble, to joint. I'm going to make sure that I choose this face right, getting in, right there, and clicking right, whoops, come on, DOS. Yep, right there, in the center here. All right, cool. And I'm going to move this up. I'm going to move this over. Flip it. There we go. And I can even use this one to kind of rotate it a little bit more. Oops, overlapping, don't want that. All right, cool. And nothing's overlapping. It's all good. It's good angle. Click OK. And I've now got it in here. All right, so now that I've got this, I need to project it onto a sketch. And to do that, I'm going to use a technique that we should be familiar with. I'm going to go to Create Sketch, and I'm going to do it on the base, right there, the origin. All right, and now that I've got this, I am going to go to Create and Project Include. I have to be in my sketch to do this, but I'm going to project onto a new sketch. And to make this easier, I'm going to turn my stock off so it doesn't get in my way. If I don't do that, it's really finicky about where I'm grabbing and what piece I'm grabbing here, or what component I'm grabbing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stock, and then I'm going to click each one of these. There. And now that I've got 4 selected, also make sure that you've chosen bodies here when you do that. If you do specified entities, it's going to be a pain, so make sure bodies are chosen. And once I've selected those 4, I click OK. And I now have turned this into a sketch. If I turn off all my components, I now actually have my sketch here. Finish sketch. And I can see it's the newest sketch that I put in. All right, last piece I do, I'm going to go to this sketch, right-click, and save as a DXF file. What is a DXF file? A DXF file is a file that basically a lot of vector programs understand. And I'm going to save it. Name it as chair your name. Click OK. And you are done. We now take that DXF file, export it to the laser cutter, and the laser cutter would go ahead and do the rest of the work for us.